Imagine a grocer's daughter from a small English town climbing to the highest echelons of power, not only shattering the glass ceiling, but reshaping the very landscape of British politics. This is the story of Margaret Thatcher, Britain's first female prime minister, whose formidable leadership transformed the nation and left an indelible mark on the world stage. Join us as we explore the life, legacy, and controversies of the woman known as the Iron Lady.
Mr. Speaker, wars are not caused by the build-up of weapons. They are caused when an aggressor believes he can achieve his objectives at an acceptable price.
Margaret Hilda Roberts was born on October 13, 1925, in Grantham, Lincolnshire, to Alfred Roberts, a grocer and local preacher, and Beatrice Ethel Stevenson. Growing up in a Methodist household, young Margaret was instilled with a strong work ethic and a questioning mind, often challenging conventional beliefs with her scientific reasoning. During her early years, Margaret's family hosted a Jewish teenager fleeing Nazi Germany, an experience that highlighted the turmoil of the era. Her father, Alfred, was a significant influence, serving as Grantham's mayor and instilling in her the values of public service. However, he later lost his council seat to the Labour Party. Margaret excelled academically at the Kesteven and Grantham Girls' School, where she was head girl and engaged in various activities from sports to music. Known among her peers for her intellect, she was affectionately dubbed the Star Scientist. Her scholarly pursuits led her to win a place at Somerville College, Oxford, to study chemistry, beginning her journey in higher education in 1943. This chapter of her life laid the foundational traits of determination and resilience that would hallmark her historic political career. Upon arriving at Oxford in 1943, Margaret Roberts embarked on a rigorous academic journey under the guidance of Dorothy Hodgkin, a renowned X-ray crystallographer at Somerville College. Hodgkin saw Roberts as a dependable and insightful student, capable of producing well-considered essays and contributing significantly to scientific discussions. Roberts pursued a classified honors degree, adding an extra year for supervised research on the structure of gramacide S, an antibiotic peptide. Though the complexity of the peptide's structure eluded her team at the time, Roberts graduated in 1947 with a second-class honors degree in chemistry and later gained her Master of Arts. The political sphere intrigued her during her studies, and she actively engaged in university politics, becoming the president of the Oxford University Conservative Association in 1946. Influenced by Friedrich Hayek's The Road to Serfdom, Roberts developed a critical view of governmental overreach in economics, setting the stage for her future political ideology. Roberts balanced her intense study and research with involvement in the local community, working at a forces canteen and participating in church activities as a lay preacher. Her time at Oxford not only shaped her scientific career, but also stoked her burgeoning interest in law and politics, laying the foundational beliefs that would later define her political career as one of Britain's most formidable prime ministers. After graduating from Oxford, Margaret Roberts landed a position as a research chemist at British Xylenite in Colchester, Essex, though her time there remains largely unchronicled. Initially hired to assist the head of research, she instead found herself working on methods to bind polyvinyl chloride, PVC, to metals. Her professional journey took an unexpected turn when she was rejected by Imperial Chemical Industries in 1948, deemed headstrong, obstinate, and dangerously self-opinionated. Despite this setback, Roberts actively engaged with the Conservative Party, impressing Dartford's Conservative Association enough to be invited as a candidate, even without being on the party's approved list initially. It was during this time she met Dennis Thatcher, whom she described as not very attractive, but quite nice, at a dinner event. They eventually married in Wesley's Chapel, where her children were later baptized, though they shifted to Anglican services over time. Roberts supported herself by working as a research chemist at J. Lyons & Company in Hammersmith, where she found the theoretical work on emulsifiers for ice cream more fulfilling. Under Hans Jelinek's supervision, she contributed to a paper on the saponification of alpha-monosterin, marking her only scientific publication. Jelinek later praised her for her determination and contributions to the project. This early period in Roberts's career shaped her scientific and professional pursuits and deepened her involvement in politics, setting the stage for her eventual political ascent. In the early 1950s, Margaret Roberts emerged as the Conservative candidate for the Labour stronghold of Dartford in both the 1950 and 1951 general elections. Although not the most dynamic speaker, her well-prepared and fearless approach to public engagement made her stand out. Bill Deeds, a fellow candidate, noted that once she spoke, others seemed less impressive. Her candidacy was notable as she was the youngest and the only female candidate at the time, attracting significant media attention. Despite her efforts, Roberts did not win, but she significantly narrowed the Labour majority, first by 6,000 and then by an additional 1,000 votes. Throughout these campaigns, she received strong support from her parents and Dennis Thatcher, whom she married in December 1951. Following her political efforts, she pursued legal training at the Inns of Court School of Law and qualified as a barrister in 1953, specializing in taxation, with Dennis funding her studies. That same year, the couple welcomed twins Carol and Mark, who were born prematurely via cesarean section, adding personal milestones to her growing public life. After twice contesting and losing the Labour stronghold of Dartford in the early 1950s, Margaret Thatcher did not run in the 1955 general elections, prioritizing her young twins. She later pursued a safer seat, securing the Conservative nomination for Finchley in 1958 and winning election to Parliament in 1959. Her maiden speech supported her successful Private Members Bill, the Public Bodies Act 1960, mandating public access to local council meetings. Thatcher also stood out for her controversial support for restoring birching as a form of judicial punishment in 1961. Thatcher quickly ascended to prominent roles, serving as parliamentary secretary at the Ministry for Pensions in 1961 under Harold Macmillan, and later as a spokeswoman on housing and land, where she promoted the right for tenants to buy council houses. Her economic positions included opposition to mandatory price and income controls, arguing they would distort the economy. Despite not initially being included in the shadow cabinet after the 1966 defeat, Thatcher's influence grew as she held various shadow roles, including treasury, fuel, power, and transport. Thatcher was known for her strong stances, supporting legislation to decriminalize male homosexuality and legalize abortion, yet advocating for the retention of capital punishment and opposing the relaxation of divorce laws. Her international stature was enhanced by a 1967 U.S. visit through the International Visitor Leadership Program, meeting with influential figures and reinforcing her profile as a future leader. In her later shadow roles, Thatcher was critical of the permissive society and advocated for stronger public transport investments over expanding road networks. Her political journey through the 1960s positioned her as a formidable force in British politics, laying the groundwork for her eventual leadership of the Conservative Party. When the Conservative Party, led by Edward Heath, won the 1970 general election, Margaret Thatcher was appointed Secretary of State for Education and Science. Immediately controversial, Thatcher withdrew a Labour initiative aimed at enforcing comprehensive education, implementing her policy, which allowed local authorities more discretion in education planning based on educational merits rather than the comprehensive system. Thatcher also supported market-driven approaches to government research funding, reflecting her scientific background, which likely influenced her skepticism towards traditional funding methods. Despite her personal preference for the grammar school system, during her tenure, the proportion of pupils in comprehensive schools rose significantly from 32% to 62%, as she approved the majority of the conversion proposals she received. One of her most contentious decisions was to cut spending within the education sector, which included ending free milk for school children aged 7 to 11, earning her the nickname Margaret Thatcher, Milk Snatcher. This decision was highly unpopular and led to considerable backlash from the public and media, though it was revealed later that she had opposed the policy but was compelled by the Treasury to implement it. Despite the controversies and challenges, Thatcher's resolve remained firm. Her experience in this role hardened her political determination, setting the stage for her future leadership. After Edward Heath's Conservative government was unseated amid economic and union challenges and subsequent losses in the 1974 general elections, Margaret Thatcher emerged as a key contender for the party's leadership. Despite initial doubts about her candidacy, she gained significant support from influential party members and the media, leading to her election as the leader of the Conservative Party and the leader of the opposition in 1975. Thatcher was known for her strong convictions and began to craft her public image and presentation with professional advice, which included voice coaching arranged by Laurence Olivier. She also immersed herself in neoliberal economic theories at the Institute of Economic Affairs, advocating for reduced government and freer markets, which defined her political stance. Throughout her time as the opposition leader, Thatcher made significant international visits, enhancing her foreign policy profile without the shadow foreign secretary, which underscored her independent approach. Domestically, she was a staunch opponent of Scottish devolution, influencing parliamentary actions that led to the defeat of the Scotland and Wales Bill. As Britain faced economic recovery and then the winter of discontent under James Callaghan's Labour government, Thatcher criticized the government's indecision on election timing and responded to the national crisis by positioning the Conservatives as a change catalyst. This strategy ultimately led to the Conservative victory in the 1979 general election, marking Thatcher's ascent as the first female Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Her assertive foreign policy stance against the Soviet Union earned her the nickname Iron Lady, a label she embraced and which defined her resilient and formidable political persona. Thatcher became Prime Minister on May 4, 1979. Arriving at Downing Street, she said, paraphrasing the prayer of St. Francis, "Where there is discord, may we bring harmony. Where there is error, may we bring truth. Where there is doubt, may we bring faith. And where there is despair, may we bring hope." In office throughout the 1980s, Thatcher was frequently referred to as the most powerful woman in the world. As opposition leader and prime minister during a period of heightened racial tensions in Britain, Margaret Thatcher's stance notably influenced public opinion. In a 1978 interview, she commented on the potentially overwhelming impact of minority populations, which resonated with many voters, leading to a surge in her poll ratings and a corresponding decline in support for the National Front during the 1979 general election. Despite acknowledging the contributions of minorities, she expressed concerns about large numbers of Asian immigrants and was cautious about the number of Vietnamese boat people being allowed into the UK. Thatcher's weekly meetings with Queen Elizabeth II were characterized by a professional yet cool relationship. Despite her reverence for the monarchy, Thatcher's modernizing agenda often clashed with traditional values, leading to reports of tension. The Queen's press secretary in 1986 hinted at disagreements over Thatcher's policies, which he viewed as harsh and divisive. However, Thatcher maintained that her interactions with the Queen were always appropriate, dismissing rumors of significant personal clashes. Margaret Thatcher's economic approach was shaped by monetarism, inspired by economists like Milton Friedman. Her administration, with Geoffrey Howe as chancellor, cut direct taxes and raised indirect ones, tightened monetary policies to curb inflation, and implemented stringent public spending limits, affecting social services like education and housing. Her policies led to her being the first post-war Oxonian prime minister not awarded an honorary doctorate from Oxford University, following significant opposition from the university's governing assembly. Despite resistance from moderate members of her cabinet and widespread riots in 1981 calling for policy changes, Thatcher famously declared at the Conservative Party conference, "You turn if you want to. The lady's not for turning." This period saw her popularity wane, with an approval rating dropping to 23% by the end of 1980. The early 1980s recession deepened, and her government increased taxes despite criticism from leading economists. However, by 1982, the UK showed signs of recovery. Inflation had significantly decreased, though unemployment exceeded 3 million. Thatcher's policies led to a substantial economic turnaround by 1983, with falling inflation and mortgage rates, though the manufacturing sector shrank dramatically. By 1987, the economy had stabilized enough that Thatcher, confident from positive opinion polls and local election results, called an early general election, securing her third consecutive term. She remained skeptical about the UK's involvement in the European exchange rate mechanism, a stance that persisted until being persuaded otherwise in 1990 under John Major's chancellorship. One of Thatcher's most controversial policies was the introduction of the community charge, commonly known as the poll tax, which was met with widespread public and political opposition, culminating in violent protests in 1990. This unpopularity played a role in her political downfall, leading to the tax's repeal by her successor, John Major, in 1991. Margaret Thatcher viewed trade unions as detrimental to both workers and the public, attributing economic challenges and undermining democracy to their actions. Her tenure saw significant confrontations, notably the miners' strike of 1984 to 85, which was a pivotal battle between the government and the unions. The strike was marked by Thatcher's firm refusal to concede to the unions, likening the confrontation to wartime battles, drawing criticism for her harsh rhetoric. Under her leadership, union power waned significantly, with union membership dropping dramatically during her years in office. The miners' strike, while failing to achieve its goals, led to the closure of numerous mines and significant job losses, impacting communities across the UK. Thatcher's economic policy, famously known as Thatcherism, involved reducing government intervention in the economy, promoting free markets and privatization of state-owned enterprises. This included major utilities and industries, which were privatized and often resulted in increased efficiency and productivity, though the impact on competition was mixed. Her policies of economic liberalization extended to curtailing public expenditure, which included controversial measures like the abolition of free milk for school children, earning her the nickname Margaret Thatcher, Milk Snatcher. Despite initial unpopularity and economic difficulties, by the late 1980s, the UK saw economic recovery and falling unemployment, affirming its economic strategies in the eyes of many. Thatcher's legacy in handling domestic affairs, especially her dealings with trade unions and economic policies, remains a topic of debate, illustrating her profound impact on British society and its economic landscape. Margaret Thatcher supported active climate protection, instrumental in passing the Environmental Protection Act 1990 and founding the Hadley Center for Climate Research and Prediction. She played a pivotal role in establishing the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and ratifying the Montreal Protocol, aiming to preserve the ozone layer. Her advocacy helped mainstream climate change and pollution issues in Britain during the late 1980s. During her tenure, Thatcher addressed several international crises, advocating strong positions on global conflicts and alignment with U.S. policies. Notably, she supported U.S. President Ronald Reagan during the Cold War, despite disagreements like the 1983 Grenada invasion. She backed the deployment of U.S. nuclear missiles in Western Europe and engaged in significant defense initiatives, including purchasing the Trident missile system. Thatcher's leadership witnessed controversial support for regimes and groups such as Saddam Hussein's Iraq and the Khmer Rouge, reflecting the complex geopolitical dynamics of her time. Her stance on the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan involved supporting disruptive actions alongside the CIA and SAS, enhancing British foreign policy's aggressive posture. Her relationship with Mikhail Gorbachev marked a thaw in Cold War relations, leading to a new relationship beyond the Cold War's confines. Yet, her decision to allow U.S. bombings from British bases during the Libyan conflict in 1986 showcased her willingness to take bold, often contentious, actions on the international stage. Thatcher's foreign policies were characterized by a blend of confrontational and cooperative approaches, influencing significant global events and aligning closely with American geopolitical interests during pivotal moments in late 20th century history. On April 2, 1982, Argentina invaded the Falkland Islands, triggering a war that became a defining moment for Thatcher's leadership. She quickly organized a war cabinet and dispatched a naval task force, which successfully recaptured the islands by June 14th, despite significant loss of life on both sides. Criticized for the initial lack of defense that led to the war and the controversial sinking of the Aire General Belgrano, Thatcher's decisive handling of the crisis ultimately bolstered her reputation, contributing to her re-election in 1983. She often referred to the Falklands spirit to describe the streamlined decision-making that she favored during wartime. In 1982, Thatcher negotiated with China's Deng Xiaoping over the future of Hong Kong, leading to the Sino-British Joint Declaration in 1984, which agreed to return Hong Kong to China in 1997. These discussions marked Thatcher's pragmatic approach to international diplomacy and her willingness to make difficult concessions. Despite advocating for peaceful negotiations to end apartheid, Thatcher opposed international sanctions against South Africa, aiming to maintain trade and influence reforms from within. Her approach drew criticism, but also recognition from figures like Nelson Mandela, who acknowledged her opposition to apartheid post-prison. Throughout the Cold War, Thatcher maintained a firm stance against the Soviet Union, supporting the U.S. in various international issues, including the deployment of nuclear missiles in Europe. Her government provided covert support in conflicts like Afghanistan and controversially backed regimes such as Pol Pot's in Cambodia. Thatcher was initially cautious about German reunification, but adjusted her position following reassurances from German Chancellor Helmut Kohl. Thatcher was proactive in environmental protection, supporting significant initiatives like the Montreal Protocol and advocating for global climate change treaties. Her policies reflected an understanding of environmental issues ahead of her time, juxtaposed with her robust foreign policy stances and alignment with U.S. Cold War strategies. During her time as Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher maintained the second lowest average approval rating of any post-war prime minister at 40%. Despite winning 3 elections, her popularity waned with the resignation of Chancellor Nigel Lawson in 1989, and polls consistently showed her trailing behind her party. In December 1989, Thatcher faced a leadership challenge from Sir Anthony Meyer, but she secured a strong majority of Conservative MP votes. However, discontent within her party grew, especially after she removed Geoffrey Howe as Foreign Secretary in July 1989 due to disagreements over the European Exchange Rate Mechanism, ERM, which Britain joined in October 1990. Howe resigned in November 1990, critiquing Thatcher's dismissive attitude towards the European Monetary Union in a speech that precipitated her downfall. Michael Heseltine then challenged her leadership. Though she led in the initial ballot, she was short of the required majority and withdrew after consulting her cabinet. Thatcher resigned in November 1990, deeply affected by what she saw as a betrayal. John Major succeeded her, enhancing Conservative support and securing a 4th consecutive election victory in April 1992. Thatcher initially supported Major in the leadership contest, but later distanced herself from him. After leaving office in 1990, Margaret Thatcher returned to the backbench as a member of Parliament. Her approval ratings improved, but opinion remained divided over her government's impact. In 1992, she retired from the House of Commons to speak more freely. Post-retirement, she established the short-lived Margaret Thatcher Foundation and wrote her memoirs. Hired by Philip Morris as a consultant, she also advocated for Croatian and Slovenian independence during the Yugoslav Wars and critiqued the Maastricht Treaty in the House of Lords. Thatcher served as honorary chancellor at the College of William and Mary and the University of Buckingham. Despite her contentious politics, she praised Tony Blair and supported the conservative campaigns in the 1992, 1997, and 2001 general elections. She also supported aggressive action against Iraq and was critical of the European Union, suggesting the UK might be better aligned with North American trade. Following health issues, she ceased public speaking in 2002 and mourned the loss of her husband, Sir Dennis Thatcher, in 2003. On June 11, 2004, despite her doctor's advice, Margaret Thatcher attended Ronald Reagan's state funeral, delivering a eulogy she had pre-recorded months earlier due to her health. She later criticized Tony Blair's 2003 decision to invade Iraq, emphasizing the need for evidence before military action. In 2005, Thatcher celebrated her 80th birthday with notable guests including the Queen and Tony Blair. She attended the 2006 Washington Memorial Service for 9/11 and in 2007 became the first living British Prime Minister honored with a statue in the Houses of Parliament, joking she would have preferred iron to bronze. Health issues saw her hospitalized in 2008 and again in 2009 after a fall. In 2011, Thatcher was too frail to attend a ceremony for a Ronald Reagan statue. Her last House of Lords attendance was in July 2010, and by July 2011, her Lord's office had closed. That month, a poll named her the most competent prime minister in the past 30 years. Her daughter, Carol, revealed in 2005 that Thatcher was suffering from dementia, detailing the progressive impact on her memory and recognition of events. Margaret Thatcher passed away on April 8, 2013, at age 87 due to a stroke while staying at the Ritz Hotel in London, where she moved in December 2012 because of mobility issues. Her death certificate cited a stroke and repeated transient ischemic attacks as primary causes, with bladder cancer and dementia as secondary factors. Reactions in the UK to her death varied greatly, from high praise, calling her one of Britain's greatest peacetime prime ministers, to public celebrations and disparagement. Thatcher had pre-planned her ceremonial funeral, which included full military honors and was held at St. Paul's Cathedral on April 17. Queen Elizabeth II attended, marking a rare occasion. The Queen had only once before attended a former prime minister's funeral, that of Winston Churchill in 1965. Following the service, Thatcher was cremated at Mortlake, and a private ceremony later interred her ashes next to her husband's in the Royal Hospital, Chelsea's grounds. Thatcherism marked a dramatic shift from the post-war consensus that had dominated British politics, characterized by Keynesian economics, a robust welfare state, and a regulated economy. While Thatcher upheld the welfare state, she sought to curtail its excesses and famously reassured that the NHS was safe in our hands in 1982. Under her leadership, Thatcherism came to define not only her policies, but also her style, which included moral absolutism and staunch nationalism. Thatcher's approach was a clear departure from the one-nation conservatism of her predecessor, Edward Heath, as illustrated in her 1987 statement to Woman's Own magazine, where she emphasized self-reliance over governmental dependency. During her time in office, home ownership and shareholding among adults increased significantly, spurred by her policies of privatizing national industries and selling council houses at significant discounts. However, her tenure also saw high unemployment and social unrest, with critics blaming her economic policies for long-term social issues in affected communities. Despite the controversy, Thatcher claimed no regrets, notably defending her introduction of the poll tax and cuts to industrial subsidies as necessary tough choices. Critics from the left viewed her as divisive and accused her of fostering greed and a culture of dependency. In immigration, Thatcher's late 1970s rhetoric aimed to counter the National Front by acknowledging and addressing public concerns about immigration, a strategy that saw a shift in voter support from the National Front to the Conservatives. Thatcher's legacy influenced the Labour Party's evolution into New Labour under Tony Blair, aiming to retain Thatcher-supporting constituents. Her policies also inadvertently fueled momentum for Scottish devolution, with some arguing that her administration indirectly hastened movements towards greater Scottish autonomy. Thatcher's 11-year tenure as Prime Minister was the longest continuous stint since Lord Liverpool in the early 19th century. She led the Conservative Party to 3 consecutive election victories, twice by a landslide, positioning her among the most electorally successful leaders in British history. Under her leadership, the Conservative Party received over 40 million votes in total. Her policies and leadership style sparked significant political shifts, even influencing the Labour Party, which rebranded as New Labour under Tony Blair to appeal to the broader electorate that supported Thatcher. Despite a relatively low approval rating during her premiership, Thatcher is often rated highly in retrospective polls and is seen positively in overall terms by the British public. She consistently ranks as one of Britain's greatest post-war leaders in polls and academic studies. Thatcher's legacy also includes significant cultural depictions, ranging from satirical portrayals on programs like Spitting Image to serious portrayals in films and series like The Iron Lady and The Crown. She remains a polarizing figure in British political and cultural history. In the US, Thatcher received the Ronald Reagan Freedom Award from the Reagan Presidential Foundation in 1998. She was designated a patron of the Heritage Foundation in 2006, where she established the Margaret Thatcher Center for Freedom. As we reflect on Margaret Thatcher's legacy, it is clear that she was a figure of monumental influence, not just in the United Kingdom, but across the world. Her policies reshaped the British economy. Her leadership style redefined political leadership, and her tenure marked a significant shift in British and global politics. Despite being a polarizing figure, Thatcher's impact is undeniable, with her approach to governance leaving a lasting imprint that extended well beyond her years in office. Her ability to stand firm on her beliefs, regardless of opposition, continues to evoke admiration and criticism. As we look back, Thatcher's legacy is a complex tapestry of triumph, controversy, and enduring influence, making her one of the most formidable figures in modern political history.